just to tell a very simple breakup story, to start from a point as simple as that and see how comedic and how dark a simple starting point could go, but also and mainly bringing Colin and Brendan back together after 14 years since In Bruges was sort of uppermost in my mind to do that. So they were always going to be those two friends falling out, and so I think that was the original germ of the idea. Not Destroying the Legacy was uppermost in my mind. This is a very different story. I think it's sort of maybe a sadder kind of thing, much more sort of intimate, less genre-like, I guess. But in the years since In Bruges, all three of us, Colin, Brendan, and I, people come up to us all the time and say how much they like it, and it's almost like they found it themselves, that film, because it was didn't do especially well when it first came out, and it's become sort of this cult kind of thing that people have taken to their hearts. So you don't ever want to rip that off or make something that people who love that so much are disappointed in. At the same time, you can't let that constrict you. But I kind of felt, because this is so different and the characters are so different, I felt like if we can just capture how well they work between each other in a very different, stranger story, I don't think anyone who loves In Bruges is going to be disappointed. Hopefully they'll be surprised and see a lot more different things in the boys, but I don't think anyone will be disappointed.
Initially, I'll be honest, I was a little bit like, oh, it's not as showy as Mairead in Lieutenant or Slippy Helen and the Cripple of Inisherin, because they're just like these firecracker women with these, really sure of themselves and outspoken. So that was my initial. I was like, oh, but then of course I was just grateful that I was going to be in the film at all. But then when we started rehearsing it and I started thinking about it a bit more, I kind of thought, oh, it's actually kind of harder than those parts, because it's way more subtle and there's a lot going on that she doesn't really show, and there's more private. So I felt like if it came to me earlier in my career, earlier in my life, I don't think I would have been as good at the part. I think you needed a maturity to pull it off. So, well, luckily now a lot of the cast had done Martin's plays, so everyone kind of knew what they were dealing with and knew the dialogue and knew the commas or pauses and adhered to the sort of rules really that you have with the scripts or whatever.
And we had rehearsals too, didn't we?
We did, yeah, 2 weeks rehearsals, and everyone kind of again was very grateful for the opportunity, because just because you do the plays and things or work with anybody, it doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to work with that person again. So everyone was very grateful and kind of top of their game, really, weren't they?
Yeah.
Everyone just really brought it. While we all knew each other and worked together before, it wasn't like we were all high-fiving each other. Everyone felt pressure to do a really good job.
But it did feel like a little repertory theatre company almost.
Yeah.
There was an ease. Even the people who came in for 2 days, like David Pearce, we know him for years and years. We've done plays with him. And Brendan knows, he plays the priest in the confessional. So oftentimes, a day player against Brendan is going to be a bit nervous. But there's none of that.
Very true, yeah.
Because Brendan knows how good he is. DP knows how good he is, and I think that's why those scenes are so funny and real. It's two sparring partners who are equal almost, and I think we had that with Gary, who played a policeman, with Aaron Monaghan, who has the tiny little role, the guy,
the bread fan guy. Yes, yeah.
Spoilers.
What's his name in it though? Hang on.
Declan.
Declan from Listune Varna. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So I think there was 10 people in the cast, but we kind of knew them all, apart from Breege maybe, who's in the shop, and we're just chatting between ourselves.
No,
but
sorry.
But Breege was brilliant. But I think she's a great theatre actress as well, and who else? And then Barry, I'd wanted to work with as well. I wrote this screenplay for Kerry, for Barry, for Colin, and Brendan. So it was perfect that I got you all.
Yay.
I can't quite put my finger on it. There's much more of an ease though because naturally it's not exactly how Colin would speak, or it's very different to how Colin would speak, and Brendan. But there's something about their intonations that you try and capture, or their outlook on life, or for Colin especially, knowing how well he can do tenderness or almost a childlike innocence.
Yeah.
You sort of tap into that and know that outside of the lines, he's going to imbue those moments with his brilliance, you know. Like even when in that scene where Brendan says to him the first time, "I just don't like you no more," it was the knowledge that in that pause was going to be the entire film, the heartbreak.
I know, and he
of it.
can express a lot in his face when he's not talking.
Yeah. So
What
it's the
about
knowledge
me?
of that. And yeah, you're right too. But the same thing with you is like you leave the room for your brilliance to come through.
Thanks, Marge.
Well,
Everyone
okay.
heard that, I hope.
Brilliance to
Thank
come through.
you.
Well, I guess part of it is the fact that there isn't escape. You can't escape from it. You know, you can have this little war with your friend, but there's no. You know, if you had one in Toronto or London, you'd go, you'd move, or you'd go across the city. But there was none of that back then, or very little of it. So you have to see the person who's giving you grief every day. Which is kind of funny.
It's so funny when he's on the road and he doesn't even look at him.
Yeah, mean.
That's so funny though at the same time.
But yeah, I think for me that's probably the main part of it. But also the beauty of the Aran Islands. You know, we filmed on Inisherin, and I think it's not since Robert Flaherty's Man of Aran that something was made there. As far as I know, I could be wrong in that. But to capture the beauty of that place and the whole west coast of Ireland was another reason for making it, putting it on an island.
And then there's that kind of, I think, that Lord of the Flies kind of thing where like when you isolate people, like they can go a bit wild, you know, and there's sort of no voice of reason or whatever watching over them or whatever maybe as well. I mean, that's just my feeling about an island. But I guess you can get that anywhere if you isolate anybody, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Any group of people.
Yeah.